Watch it. It's really good. And I did. Oh shit! It is actually really good. I don't know. Have you seen the movie As Good as It Gets?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that. It's like grumpy old men complaining about.
Who is the lead? Is it Robert De Niro? No, Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. Yeah.
Yeah. I never liked him very much. That's why when I see the thumbnail, I say, no, not you.
Yeah.
Not you. Please not you.
Exactly that. I think the only movie that I can kind of remember from him is Falling Down, which was a good movie. You remember that one?
Anna, why are you stuck? Anna.
Who knows?
Oh, Anna disappeared.
Huh?
But she disappeared in such a nice pose, like.
Let her get
Hello?
back, and
Oh, hello.
That was so strange. I'm not stuck. I was hearing how you are saying that I am stuck.
You got stuck in such pretty pose. You're like. It was good for you, actually.
we are live.
So should I go back and stuck once again?
Yeah, you've been talking about movies. She's just like she's huge fan of movies and all those things, so you can talk about this forever. And she's very upset that nobody wants to talk about these things with her, so she's like,
well, at least online. Like I have a few friends with whom I discuss it, but now I'm thinking that if I'm entering the passion economy, why did not I enter it with movies like my true passion? And I have that cognitive
Anna,
dissonance. I don't know. I'm stupid, I guess.
You're not.
Communities.
What?
I said we do movie nights on communities. We watch movies together with our community.
Yes, I suggested do that.
Yeah.
I suggested we do that. I even broke the encryption of Disney Plus for that. so we're able to watch that on
I hope you're not streaming right now.
He's streaming.
He is streaming. This dude is stupid. Don't believe him. Like, he talks like random stuff.
Hey, stupid team, let's go.
Yeah, he does not know how to break stuff.
No, totally not.
I have Netflix. We can watch the Bob Burnham's special inside.
Yeah, I watched it actually. Wasn't that impressed. It was very depressing.
It was. I know.
Depressing. I like depressing shit. Okay.
It was very depressing. It sits inside of you, especially.
That's okay. That's what I like.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I need in my life.
Depressing songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very depressing songs. The one with Soko, like I heard it and something happened inside of me. It was very, very heavy song.
Oh yeah, most of them were.
We still have 6 minutes for the warm-up, so...
Oh, why?
Why am I a slideshow?
What?
I am a slideshow.
No, you are not.
No, I'm not. I'm beautiful. I'm good. Like, do you like how I did?
You are beautiful.
What's that? Shh. Righto.
We can start, I guess.
We can start?
If you're ready with the setup,
I'm ready.
so we can.
I'm ready. So everything's working.
We can start already. Why would we need to wait for more? Be a creepy intro.
Do you think it's time?
Yes.
Do it.
He's scrolling cat memes.
I mean, the problem is that they push me into like doing the intro, and then they bully it for me. For that. And like it's been like that for a while. I still cannot get used to it.
For a few months at least. So
should switch the chops around.
Start recording.
Now we're recording.
Are you recording? Well, yeah. Now go with your creepy intro.
Hello, people. Today is a very special day because we have a person with an enormous experience in community consultancy, and we gonna figure out today how communities work from the perspective of. No, that was a shitty intro. I wanna do a new one. I wanna do a new one.
Why your presentation?
Yes. Why am I think the phone overheats?
I hear your ventilation, actually. No? I hear something.
That's not mine.
It's
That's
not ours.
Oh, do you hear like a buzzing sound? Because that
Yeah.
because I've got a bumblebee in my ear.
Oh,
No, it's not a bumblebee sound. That's like ventilation sound.
Okay.
Yeah, Vincent, that's you. It's interesting that the crisp noise cancellation thing, it doesn't catch it.
but crisp should catch if like you turned it on in the Discord. But it's it's gone now, actually.
But when Vincent talks,
Okay, start the creepy intro. Like
No, I'm just wondering because I would need to fix it in post-production, so this is why.
Ah, okay.
would you like Vincent to go into the settings and double check that noise cancellation is on for you? Like it's bottom left of Discord, like user settings, and then it's voice and video, and then you scroll down and noise suppression on crisp.
Voice and video, and then
And noise suppression, like the top one, crisp.
noise reduction. I've got
Noise suppression. Please switch to noise suppression if you have it. It should be not noise reduction, but noise suppression.
no. Not that I can see.
Interesting. It should be on the very top.
I also see.
Voice and video?
Yeah, voice and video.
Yes, voice
advanced
and video.
settings, noise suppression.
Crisp. It will be a crisp logo. Or maybe you're on Mac and then it doesn't work.
I am on Mac.
Well, I had on Mac crisp, so.
Is this the web version or it's the application of Discord?
The web version. To be.
I guess it's too late. Yeah, it doesn't work in web.
Yeah.
Do you have web version, or I mean application version?
No, but I could download it if you wanted me to.
I guess it's too late. Let's just
No, maybe let's try, because that would be pain in the ass to remove this in post-production.
So we
can wait for 5 minutes.
We can wait for 5 minutes. Vincent, would you like to download the desktop version, please?
Doing it right.
Standalone, please. Otherwise, your sound gonna be super.
Not bad, is it? Surely not.
I mean, just in case you fix the now, we're gonna be there for you. We're gonna be there for you.
Come on.
I know you can sing the song about everything you can do. I can
do better.
I can do anything better than you. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
That's how she motivates speakers. Like, when speakers are like, "Look, I'm gonna tell you like how to do stuff," she's like, "Nope, nope, nope."
Mom, listen, I am a singer now. I'm singing on the streams.
But yeah, it's interesting that my phone overheats from time to time.
Phone?
Yeah, that's why I look so beautiful.
But not as beautiful as I do.
Good.
You need to sing now. Everything you can do.
I can do better.
Okay.
It was actually from some kind of musical. I don't remember.
From very old one. I'm looking into Vincent's introduction description on Standing on Giants website. It says our visionary co-founder Vincent Boon, together with Aurelian Poma, was instrumental in building PlayStation's first online community in 2006. Aurelian Poma. I have zero ideas what it is.
It's a friend of mine.
Well, we have that on record.
Okay. Hello, Aurelian. Hello, Poma.
Lera, I suggest you to make this creepy intro.
Yes, I will.
So, and today we're gonna have an interview with a friend of Aurelian Poma.
So, did you download the desktop version?
Yes, I did. Hold on. It's now.
Okay.
Log in with a QR code or whatever.
That's or you have to log in.
Discord mobile.
It's a bit cheated that we didn't ask you this question a bit earlier. But usually people with people with the web version
you need to add it in the onboarding.
Yes.
And specifically mention that.
I think I did. Sorry for the stress.
Pressure pushing down on me.
Pushing down on you.
No man as for under pressure.
I love that we became this like
musical show. Yes.
I mean, like when the stream is not happening, we have to entertain people somehow. So okay, you're gaining viewers on Twitch.
I'll be right back then.
Okay.
So you can continue juggling.
Your shirt is very heavy today.
Oh, drum roll.
Now I need to still go to play some video.
It's beautiful now.
Is it already done it?
Yeah.
Has it?
The beauty of crisp.
Nice.
The beauty of crisp. The beauty of crisp.
Yes, nice.
So okay, I'm ready for the creepy intro.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
ready for the creepy intro. No. Look, today we're gonna talk about communities and the organization part of the communities and how Vincent, a friend of Aurelian Poma, is on the Standing on Giants website. That's the technology and consultancy, and we're gonna talk about all that in a bit. Also about Better Communities Initiative and all other cool things. But first, do we talk about who we are?
Yeah, let's introduce ourselves first. Okay, hello, I'm Lera. I'm artist and I'm community manager here.
Hello, I am Anna. I am the local pop culture reference person. I write about communities. And I sing from time to time, apparently. So stay tuned.
New talent, new hobby.
New hobby.
Wait for it. What I'm doing here is doing the deck part, creepy intros, and also I hear like all this, whatever.
And also you're Oleg.
Yeah. Years of experience in developer relations and community building and stuff. And also I am guilty for inviting Vincent here. Vincent, I can introduce you, but then Lera will hate me for that.
Yes. You can do better.
Yeah, I can introduce myself if you like.
Yes.
Please.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm Vincent Boon, and I have been playing around with communities for, I don't know, many years now, almost 20 years, I think, and started off just doing it for funsies on IRC, as well as some, kind of like web-based kind of like technologies, late 90s, early 2000s, and I don't know, set up an online poker meetup club in London that grew that to like 200,000 members playing poker all over London. And then, because I was kind of like working in the computer games industry, and because it was really early on, so no one really did any kind of like online community stuff back in those days. But I was working for a company called Eidos, so you guys who make Tomb Raider, Hitman, Commandos, those kind of games. And I was working on a game called Championship Manager, which is all about managing football teams. But I'm not a massive football fan, so that wasn't really, my bag. And as I was doing communities on the side, I thought, why don't we just invite all our crazy fans over to actually, test this game for us? And so that's kind of like how I got my first, intro into being paid to do community management, which was really fun. Eventually ended up with like 20,000 people testing a game and giving us lots of feedback and helping us and really develop the game. So they set up like leagues and letters and, created newspapers and bulletins. All of that stuff kind of like went into the game. So I was working with the producer and the developers. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. I want to keep doing this. But it was like their very, very first project for Idol. So after the project finished, kind of like, right, back to normal testing. And I was like, no, I want to do more community. And so then I went and looked for a job and found one because Sony PlayStation was just setting up their community, which is where I met Aurelian Poma. So Aurelian and myself started Sony at the same time. And basically built that community out to eventually cover 10 different languages and all of the PlayStation games. So first for the PlayStation 2, then for the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Portable and PlayStation 4 and so on. And it was loads of fun. Supporting all of those different games, doing lots of different events, the online worlds like PlayStation Home and doing, again, lots of beta testing. And while I was doing that, I was kind of like starting to dabble into how can we get our customers more involved in doing things for the company. Customer service, for example, but that eventually led to, people within the community completely creating a game. So we had a development team and the community came out with the characters, the design of the game, the weapons, whether they could jump or not, and, everything basically. And that eventually launched in the PlayStation Store and was sold quite well. And so that was really cool. And then from there, I then left the games industry and went to work for corporates. And in this case, it was a little company called GiftGaff, which was an MVNO, which means a mobile virtual network operator, which basically means, you got your normal mobile phone masts and all of that. Everyone has their actual hardware all out in the country. You have these MVNOs, which is like a little software layer that you could put on top. And that's how you can kind of create new mobile networks. And this was like the very first time that was kind of like done for a big network here called O2, which you might have in your countries as well. And O2 was owned by an even larger corporate called Telefonica. And GiftGaff, the premise for that was it didn't have any normal customer service. So the community had to actually do the customer service for the network, which for telcos is incredibly important because like 30 to 40% of the cost of a telco sits in customer service. So that would be, for our GiftGaff would have been, amazing if we could solve that, which we did, by the way. In fact, the customer service, 90% of it was done by the community. And you would get help even at 4 a.m, right? In a 24-hour period, you'd get help, within a minute and a half, you would have an answer from the community, which was amazing. But then we started doing loads more with the community. So the community got involved in, the sales. So 50% of all new acquisition came through the community. We got them involved in marketing, even in product design and development. Really anything really, and that model for GiftGaff worked so well that I thought, well, this is cool. And then, sat down with a business analyst and kind of like talked about how I managed this community because I'd never really analyzed how I did that. And it took about 9 months and, came up with, basically all of the different processes that, I used to help manage a community. Turned out about, over 120 of them that I just kind of like, instinctively used. And so by having that material, that allowed me to start training other people to do the kind of like similar kind of things that I did. And then we did that model that we did for GiftGaff for Telefonica loads of times, mostly in South America. So, we worked in Brazil with Vivo, like 120 million customers, or Movistar in Argentina. We did like 60 million customers, like really big companies, but also a range of, smaller kind of like startups like GiftGaff. And so we did this, in Mexico, Central America, Ecuador, you name it. And then once, we kind of like did that for Telefonica, we actually did a management buyout and started working for lots of other corporates, Airbnb probably being one of the prime examples. So Airbnb's host community has been, run and managed by myself and my team for, since inception really till now. And so we do this for Lenovo Legion laptops, or I don't know, Tesco Bank, and so bank, insurance companies, utility companies, all kinds. And now I just work with a whole range of other companies as well, just to do more kind of like community integration work. So it's become, even more fun and exciting, where it's no longer just a forum, but we're actually looking at how do we, integrate community experience within the product itself. So that's kind of.
I have a question. May I jump in? I was just like impressed. You told that you are in this kind of industry for 20 years. Am I right? Yes.
Yeah, roughly.
And I'm like, okay, I'm 22. I'm like, so I'm really wondering how the online communities looked before, like 20 years ago, because for me, like there was nothing like at that time.
You were 2 years old.
I was 2, yeah. Like, so that's why I'm wondering, like, how it was before, and what's the difference between online communities right now, how it developed, and maybe you can tell, like, briefly. So, because I'm sorry, guys, but I'm wondering very much about this. I'm too young.
She's wondering if she was missing out when she was 2 on something.
Yes.
All of that stuff is still around, right? So, they're just message boards, and like the internet's built on message boards, right? That's how, the very first thing people did was leave a message on the internet when there was still dial-up internet. So because there weren't these things that we're doing now, right, with video and chat and that kind of stuff wasn't really possible because it wasn't fast enough. The connections weren't fast enough. So all you could do was like leave messages and load them in and then reply and that kind of stuff. And that's just become more and more advanced over the years. But really, in reality, these kind of message boards technology hasn't really progressed that much. And that's something that I've been working on a lot. But it's hard obviously to do because you need a lot of funds to do cool stuff. But overall the technology is relatively similar, except for now you've got a lot more access to statistics and that kind of stuff, which allows you to really look and dive more deeper into how people are behaving, which then allows you to manage people better because you understand kind of like what they like and what they don't like and where they're involved and that kind of stuff.
But can I catch you a bit on that? Since, especially like in year 2020, pretty much the community, the live streaming, the online events are more or less the same thing. So it's not just about the message boards, it's about all kind of online interactivity that you have to facilitate in order for online community to make sense. You have to switch from forums because you have, otherwise people just leave because like they need an app, they consume web from mobiles, they consume internet from mobiles, so you cannot just give them forums. It's not enough. So I just want to, do you have any reflection on that forums are not enough?
I think forums are enough, to be fair, but I do realize that these days it's an ecosystem. Right, there's an ecosystem of channels that are around. The drawbacks for me for things like Discord or Slack or those kind of like apps or social media is social media is a whole different ball game, right? Social media is kind of like more like a marketing tool. You rarely see people on social media starting to develop relationships with each other, right? And similarly, with things like chat, it's the knowledge of the moment, right? It's whoever is online at that time will be able to give answers. But because there's no historical kind of like content, it's harder for people to search, for people to add content, add, additional information into particular conversations that have been going on, say, I don't know, yesterday or 2 days ago, right? And so that's where the power of, message boards, even though they are, a technology that has been around for ages, is still incredibly useful for building communities and more long-lasting relationships, because you can kind of like go back into the history, and it's much easier that way than with, the more, ephemeral tools that are around now. That would be my,
I'm trying to digest that.
Mm.
And what I heard that you have joined our Facebook haters club. That you cannot build a community on Facebook or social networks. And
Yeah, I think it's very hard to do. It's a content channel, you see. So it's a channel to consume content, and whereas what I'm doing is always looking to connect people, right? And allowing people to help businesses out, right? And that's very hard to do in social channels, I find. And especially like people connecting with each other over time and forming deep relationships. That kind of stuff is, my experience is that is definitely easier to do on a forum.
and
I
I
know.
look puzzled.
Yeah, I'm I'm trying to wrap my head around this idea, because my perception of community um, comes from a place like, for example, if I'm looking for like live streaming setup recommendation, I will find the content that is like curated something on that topic, and eventually I will join a community. So my thinking is that the content is driving the community.
But is it a community is my question.
It's
So
not a
maybe from that.
community, but it's
Mm.
like solving that very specific. Like for me,
Mm.
the definition of a community would be like a place where very niched place where people are sharing their knowledge with each other.
Yes, but my question is, how many, relationships and friendships kind of thing, right? Have you gained from joining those types of communities, or have you just gone in, gotten the knowledge that you needed, and popped out, right? And so
Well,
the
that's
difference.
a good question, actually. Yeah. So you mentioned that you now there is a lot of statistics where you can see how people are behaving and kind of how the relationships are formed. Do you have any like cheat sheet on how to kind of manage the community where you want to foster like real relationships?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is done, obviously, community managers, right?
Hmm.
That's the key role in any kind of community, and that's a lot of it is relationship building. So we do this, mostly through private messaging, but also, public posting, right? And that is, where you're highlighting someone who's, been particularly good in terms of, what they've said or the way they've phrased their sentences, or, the things that they contributed to the community, for example. And so, when you start doing this, not only publicly, but also privately, you start getting into, more deeper conversations with these people. You start learning about their lives, about what they do, what their profession is, what they do on a day-to-day basis, what they're excited about. Because what we find is that a lot of people in the community would really like to help out. They just don't know how, right? And that's the kind of stuff that, where community ownership comes in. And so now you start understanding what people's qualities are, what drives them, right, and how they can contribute. And then from a community owner's perspective, you then look at, well, what does the business need? Right? And so, obviously, personally, I've always been, doing communities, for businesses outside of, the kind of like fandom communities that I've done, that run. And so when you're doing this for businesses, for me, it's very important to look at, all right, well, what are the gaps within the business, or where is there a lot of cost, for example, right? And then you can start looking at, all right, well, how do we integrate, members of the community into these processes? And is it fun to do? Can we, and how do they?
And what is the solution? Yes, how do you integrate the community members into whatever the business needs?
Well, I mean, there's so many different ways in which to do it. An example of this is within GiftGaff, for example. When that came out, it was like 2010, right? So the very first iPhone had just come out, and we still had, these big SIM cards. And then the iPhone came out, and then Apple, in their infinite wisdom, said, "Oh, these SIM cards are too big. We want smaller ones." Well, we had warehouses full of these big SIM cards, and we didn't have the money to start printing smaller ones. Well, what you did have was kind of like a scissor, right? And there was like a scissor, and you can stick a SIM card in it, and you click it, and then a smaller SIM card comes out. So I bought like 3 of them or 5 of them, I forgot how many, because there were people on the community basically saying, "Oh, I would really like one of those SIM cards, but I don't dare actually cut it with a scissor just in case I do it wrong and mess up my SIM card, and then it won't work anymore." So I bought these scissors and sent them over to these community members that wanted them. And then the next, community member would ask, and then this community member who had the scissor would send it to the next one. And so it did kind of like a round robin within the community, these scissors. But that became obviously more and more because the iPhone became more popular. So now we had lots of people joining giffgaff, asking for small SIMs, but we didn't have them. And so the community then started actually providing these SIM cards. And eventually that led to the community actually creating a website and a complete end-to-end distribution that we actually added into our own sales process. So as you would sign up to giffgaff and said, "All right, you're signing up with an iPhone and you want a small SIM, please click here." And it's a community-driven website.
Are you saying that you designed this whole thing? That
They did.
like you predicted and designed, like, look, like I buy a few scissors, I send them out, and then in the end they're gonna end up in like improved sale process. Did you design it, or did it just happen
These things
just
happen
because?
in that case, kind of like sort of happens organically, right? You're starting to work with people and you're looking at people who can, do more than that. So found, some coders within, the giffgaff community and started talking to them and say, all right, well, can we not, improve the process that we have now? And so as we're doing that, it first started off with like a little banner, which if you clicked it, those people that had signed up would, kind of like randomly would select one. But that was the start of it. And then we started talking about the website. So I bought like a server, and we started designing the actual website. But then we had to have security on it because we can't just distribute people's information. So again, so it's lots of steps to get into that process. But you're talking like hundreds of thousands of SIMs were sent out by the community that way. Huh? So these are projects that take quite a bit of effort on both sides, of course, in order to actually do this. But yeah, I mean, that's just one example, but we have loads of them. Like, for example, we didn't have any apps, right? And so, we didn't have a giffgaff app, and we didn't have the money either to develop one at that point. But by the end of year one, we had like 20 apps designed by the community. And so it's then about looking, okay, well, what kind of assets do people need? So we would get, all of the assets from giffgaff that would distribute around to the community. Again, you'd look to, for those people who would do it, they could do it, but they didn't really have any money. So we buy server space for them. I don't know, we buy an Apple account for them, those kind of things. So you're kind of like really helping and facilitate the kind of things that the users can do for you. So yeah, those are,
How, I mean, and sorry, Anna and Lera, like, stop me at any moment. I'm just like, I still don't understand, like, what comes first, like the design of the process. Like you are here, we want to do something, and we figure out how to do that, or do you just like feel or trust in the community, and
yeah.
like how does your decision process work? Like, oh, let's give community something, tools, and let community figure it out, and perhaps at some point we're gonna benefit. Or do you watch into some numbers, or do you, I don't know, do you talk to like, do your community managers talk to each other, then the got budget? Like, what is the process to start some bigger initiative within the community when you probably don't know if it's gonna work or not, if it's gonna adhere to expected results or not? Like, how to structure that?
Yeah, usually the problem comes first, right? So as you're working, you will see a whole range of problems within your business, come up. And then from there, you then start working out, okay, well, how can we solve this issue? And that's what you then discuss with the community, see if there's interest in helping solve that. So yeah, I mean, an example of that again is around understanding how good a network worked, right? And we literally had people driving, up and down roads, checking how, good their signal was and reporting that. right? But yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of these kind of like things, but even down to creating a radio station. Yeah, those kind of things happen relatively organically, and it's not like something that was needed, but it's certainly fun. But it's about if you are working with that community, and they often are the ones also who see the problems, right? They're using your service really, really intimately. So they're the ones who are raising things that they say, well, maybe it'd be really good to have this feature, or it'd be really good, or have you noticed that there's a problem here or there? And then we start checking that out and start saying, all right, well, it's not just about telling us that there's a problem. What could be the solution, right? So it's about being quite proactive around, finding, constructive criticism, right? So rather than just saying, oh, it's all shit, right? Cool, it's fine if something doesn't work, but how would you like it to work, right? And that can be done in any company, really.
Hmm.
I have a question. So, do you think you should engage lurkers in some way? Like a lot of people, a lot of community managers are often seeking of higher engagement in their community. So people will talk to each other, participate in the community activities, and there is this specific group of people who doesn't do anything. What is your strategy? Do you engage with them? Do you try to bring them in, or do you just leave them alone and wait and see how they behave?
Yeah, so over the years, I've definitely gotten a lot of pushback around lurkers, or well, I don't call them lurkers, I call them readers, um, because that's what they do, right? They don't lurk, they read, right? So they are definitely engaged with your community, and they're quite deeply engaged. So they're very knowledgeable. So there's different ways in which I reach out to these people and get them involved in the community, depending on what they want to do. But they're unlikely to all of a sudden write posts on your community, because that is not how they interact, right? But there can be, I don't know, we do community consultations, for example, right? Which means that there is a particular thing in a business that you want to change, or that you want to do. And you basically explain that to the community and say, well, here's a range of options in terms of how we are thinking about solving this problem. What do you guys think? And then the community starts talking about that, throwing back suggestions our side, kind of go back and forth. Well, what you can do is, when you reach out to readers and say, like, look, I understand that you're not necessarily interested in voicing your opinion publicly, but would you be so kind as to please, give a thumbs up to the content that you do like, right? Those people that, have replied with a good suggestion and you like that suggestion, give it a thumbs up. So now we know that that suggestion is more weighted by, a range of people who have actually responded in a way to these kind of things. We've done some really interesting research around readers, and we know that, for example, reading, a couple of pages in the community will reduce their churn rate by about 30%, which is huge, right? And then you're really talking about like reading like 5 pages of content, and that's it. And that's already a 30% reduction in churn. So, these kind of things are massively impactful. And so, there are definitely, a range of different ways in which you can engage readers. And sometimes they're much more open to having private conversations, right? And so here again, we start building relationships with people that are incredibly knowledgeable about your product or your service, because that's what they do, right? They read all about it, and they read all around the internet as well about that same kind of like product or service. And so they can give you amazing feedback around, what you might have missed.
And here
But
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, like, Lara, she is actually quite like in our community. She's the queen, and she's more or less against of re-engaging lurkers. Like, let them be, they're fine.
Mhm.
Or am I speaking?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like she's like, don't touch them, they're nice. And
I
like,
don't see anything bad that people are just reading
No,
wrong
no, I think,
about this.
yeah,
yeah.
and I think that's
It's sometimes a bit scary when, like, you meet those people in real life and they're like, "Oh yes, I know. I've seen this in your community. I've been watching your videos." And you're like, "What? What?
yeah, wow.
Who are you?" Yeah, this is a bit scary, but overall, I don't have anything against them.
Yeah, but Vincent, like when you consult companies or businesses, enterprises, they usually want like sort of this forced engagement of more silent people.
Yeah.
So because probably that's the KPIs, like that's how the reporting works.
Hmm.
But what's the mind process for you? Like, do you think like who wins, the enterprise boss or Lera?
Already who we want.
Like to touch or to not touch? That is the
Well,
question.
I think it's definitely okay to reach out to them. Why not? They are definitely part of your community, so why not ask them? And it doesn't mean that they have to reply, right? It's everyone's choice, right? So yeah, but for me, I'd like to hear from people that are in my community and that have a lot of knowledge about it. So yeah, why not have a conversation in private, right? They don't have to, engage publicly because clearly they're not interested in doing that, and that's fine with me. But yeah, if
Mm-hmm.
they can talk to me, that's brilliant, right?
Mm-hmm. And also, today you mentioned several times a term community owner. So that is different from the community manager because, like, from what I understand, community owner is whoever is financial, like whoever brings the budgets for the community. Am I right here, or is it
No,
about it differently?
necessarily that person brings the budget. No, it's the budget can come from anywhere, right? So organizations,
Or who
work
is community owner then?
ways. Yeah, I mean, that's more a procurement's job, right? And sometimes it's, the marketing department, or sometimes it's just the communities department, right? Which is amazing
Mm-hmm.
when that happens. So no, it's not necessarily about where the budget comes from. For me, the community owner is the person who takes ownership within the company of the community and its future. So how does that community integrate within the company, right? What role does it play within the company? The community manager is often working on the actual community, right? They're very busy
Mm-hmm.
with members and making sure that the community itself is, doing and performing well, right? And certain strategies that you have set out and certain metrics that you want to hit over time, right? So that's what you're working on as a community manager. But as a community owner, you're looking at, all right, what are the different projects that we can do with that community, and how do we allow our community to integrate within the company? Does that make
So I've just done a quick LinkedIn search on community owner, and I found very very few roles in that. It's usually like product owner, and then there is a community uh, term in that. So how do I find community owners on LinkedIn? Like, what is their job title usually?
These days, it's not like it's a well-known term or something. It's like with anything in our industry, we're working it out as we go along. Right, so community ownership and community owners is kind of like a new kind of role that we're working with, and it's also to allow us to when we are working with larger corporates, to be able to point at someone within that business, right, and say, right, well, who is taking ownership of that community within the company, right? Not someone who is on a day-to-day basis managing that community, but someone who is actually on a day-to-day business working with the different departments and saying, right, well, this is what we are doing. How are you going to be fitting in, right? And so that's why I don't see much about it. So what is that role? It could be anything really, but often, um, you know, these days still, yeah, it'll be the head of community, right? Who will have a team of community managers working with them, and then that head of community is able to, yeah, remove themselves from the day-to-day management of that community a bit more and start working, with the different departments and start working on more of the strategic kind of like life of that community within the company.
Mm-hmm.
So you are
And
doing a lot of community consulting, and I like we all can see that community is a very trendy right now. Like last year and now, it's kind of peaking. And I wonder what is when companies hire you, what are they saying? They're saying like we heard community is cool thing and we want to integrate it, or they're saying we heard community is increasing the sales. We want to we don't
save
want to
support
miss out on
budgets.
the market. Yeah, like what is their motivation when they want to integrate
What
community
is the
into their
pain?
company?
What is the pain?
No, it's definitely different for different companies, of course, right? And it's something that that's probably the first thing that we start working on. right? Whenever we start working, whenever we're engaging with someone, is, well, what's its purpose, right? Why do you want a community? To start off with, especially because of what I did with GiveCaf, there was a lot of requests for communities that did customer service, which is not necessarily where, that's not something that I'm necessarily very interested in. I think it's a function of a community that happens organically, but that function only happens organically if you do all the other stuff well, right? So if you're managing a community and that and those users are interested, right? Your membership is actually interested in what you do as a company, and is doing a whole range of other stuff for you, well, if someone else happens to come into that community and has a question, they're there anyway, right? So they might as well answer it because they know it anyway. But a pure community for customer service, for example, you rarely see them work, right? Because you often have customer service agents in there answering the questions because the community itself isn't interested in only answering customer service questions. What's the point? Right? So it's really around looking at the membership of like, all right, well, what are you interested in doing, right? And what are you interested in working with the company, right? And so that's really where you start creating really interesting communities. And so, yeah, that's, in terms of what I'm these days doing is, like I said earlier, that real integration of, community-like functionality into a product. And so, where does that live? And how do people, kind of like find ways of interacting with each other, right? Because that's what I'm always looking at. Again, it's that, not so much consume information, but actually start building relationships with other people. And that's how they can form teams and, do all kinds of cool stuff.
So you're, at least from what I'm hearing, you are helping businesses to drive sales and improve the product
Yeah.
using the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, but I read the article that you said, and like your accent about better communities, and I really liked what you wrote there. Also, like from the perspective of workers, that they feel that they're like working on the same project, that they feel the why they're doing this, and they communicate there and help customers. And I got so inspired by this because I never thought about the communities. I was only thinking about the customers, but not from the inside, and that's really cool perspective that I really liked.
Yeah. Now the Better Community Co-op is it's kind of come together because of the whole COVID situation and whatnot, and a range of us community leaders kind of came together to sit on a call like this and cry about that we couldn't go anywhere and that kind of stuff. And so it was just really a support group at first, and in fact it still is. And so it's really just us supporting each other with our work. And out of that came the sort of like bettercommunities.co. And it's just, we all felt the same, which is why we kind of like clicked so well, because we all have that same kind of like vision of how businesses need to change and how there's a lot of people in these days, certainly when you work for a larger company, the likelihood of you actually meeting one of your customers, right, is very small. And you just do your job and then you go home, right? You have your dinner, you go to sleep, and you go back to work, right? But it's a rarity these days that you actually think right about the customer in a genuine way and have genuine discussions with customers where you say, this is the part that I do within the company, right? Do you happen to have some input on that? Or I would love your thoughts on that, right? And pretty much, rarely happens. And so kind of like things that I do is really unpack roles, right? So there are many different roles, for example, in a sales department or many different roles in a marketing department. And so then we look at, all right, well, what are all of those different roles and what do those people do, right? And there you often find, small nuggets of, information where you think, gosh, that it could, be really useful to have some people to help us out. Right. And so, an example of that could be affiliate sales, right? It's a small part of sales, right? But affiliate sales is all about, okay, where do we place our banners, for example, or, what newsletters are going out and, where do we find people, that send out newsletters to, their membership base, right? And so it's about talking to your membership and finding out, like, gosh, what newsletters are you subscribed to? And so now you start getting an idea of the kind of information that your base is consuming, right? It's not just you, and they use lots of different products and services. And so once you start figuring that out, you can then get the community involved in saying, oh, by the way, have you heard of this website? I'm absolutely loving it, and maybe you want to place a banner there, right? As an example. But there's just so much that you can unpack in terms of the many, many different roles that people do within a company, and allowing them to interact, or not allowing, enabling them to interact with people within their community and getting help from them.
This is super inspiring, actually. But I mean, when you're saying it out loud, it makes a lot of sense. But like, how do you teach different community departments who are perhaps even not allowed to speak publicly to actually go and interact with the customers? But like, they didn't have PR training. They didn't have, they are not exactly allowed to talk to publicly on behalf of the company. Like, for example, somebody in procurement, somebody in sales, somebody like, I don't know, from the clerks, from all the like examples that you have mentioned. Like, how do you empower them, and how do you green light the process?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of work, obviously, with the company and educating people, right? And so, there's now Airbnb, for example, working with them has been amazing. And they now have a community board, right? And that community board has been given, like, I think it was like a 1 billion or maybe $2 billion, right? They make the choices on where that money is being spent on community initiatives, right? So these are really, significant changes. Similarly to working with companies where part of their roadmap is set by the community, right? So as we all know, roadmaps are usually filled, and they're filled for a year or two, and it's never ending. But then allowing a part of that roadmap to be driven by the community and their kind of like view on what is important for them, and then allowing with a group of within that community to get a better understanding of what's important to them, and allowing them to actually set the prioritization of parts of that roadmap are really, really exciting ways of working with your community, and more companies are doing that. But yeah, it does take a lot of education and will, right? Yeah, you have to want to do that.
And I'm listening to you, and I'm feeling so happy that you work with smaller customers,
Yeah.
where it's just like easy, and where we're able like to do like the community design and teach everybody, as in two people and on board, and that we have and that we push Discord onto businesses instead of forums or some enterprise solutions.
Mm.
And it was super fun to dive into enterprise community design and problems and solutions. And I know it was both fun and scary. What about you, Anna Lera?
No, it was, for me at least, it was very optimistic because it means that more and more companies are taking community seriously, and it seems like not for only support or sales reasons, which is the thing that always bothered me. I thought that companies are thinking, yes, another marketing channel on our funnel, let's add that. But if like companies will take that as a mission driven product, I guess the world will be much better, like at least the tech
Yes.
world.
Vincent
Yes.
has to educate them. Lera, what's
Same
your
with
view
Anna.
today?
Same with Anna. That was my impression.
Is with Anna, and that's her impression. I mean, that's at least you wear different dresses today. Like usually,
Yeah.
they wear similar dresses, just like so that nobody could tell who is who.
Who is who?
Good. Do we feel inspired, puzzled, frightened, and
A lot of things to digest for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's go digest that,
Yes.
and people watching us go digest that too.
Yes.
It's a lot to unpack. The whole
Yes.
enterprise process. Vincent, thank you so much.
Thank you very
so
much.
Like
Yeah,
all 20
thank you.
years of your experience, you made Clara feel young again. But I know, last part, like Clara, do you feel like you were missing out when you were 2?
Not really. I'm catching up right now.
Cool. Thanks again, Vincent. Thanks for your
Yes,
time.
thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
answering.
Thank
It was super
you.
cool.
Goodbye,
much.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.